So good afternoon. And welcome to everybody to this first African and African Diaspora Studies Humanities afternoon. The program has engaged in the organization of such afternoons, which we hope to organize once a year in order to bring into the scope of what the program does, the humanities, literature, but also the arts. And so the program is embedded in the School of International and Public Affairs, and as such, it has been much more oriented towards the social sciences. So, in fact, I hope you were all able to get some of the flyers and get access to the information about all of the many programs and activities the African and African Diaspora Studies program has been organizing. I'll just mention a few things. We will be offering this coming summer a study abroad program during the summer session A in Senegal and the Gambia, which is focused on the development of the tourism industry and the processes of globalization in sub-Saharan Africa. And during the summer B, you didn't find any flyers about that because we are in the process of finalizing the organization of that program. But during the summer B, we will be offering a study abroad program in Afro-Latin America. And that is a program that will be under the leadership of Dr. Quili. And she's right there. And so she's currently teaching a course, a new course that we are offering, which is entitled The African Diaspora in Latin America. And so that study abroad program will bring students to the Andean region, Ecuador, and then to Brazil, and in 3 different cities in Brazil, Rio de Janeiro, São Luís de Maranhão, and Salvador de Bahia. So it's a program that will expose students to the great diversity of the African diaspora in Latin America, from the Andes to Brazil. We also are, just to mention 2 more things, in the spring semester, we will have on February the 24th and the 25th a international conference which is entitled, I think there are flyers there about that, which is entitled Afro-Latino Social Movements from Monocultural Mestizaje and Invisibility to Multiculturalism and State Corporatism or Co-optation. And so this will bring to FIU a number of scholars from Latin America and various universities in the US as well as in France. So, and then we'll have in March another conference which will be focused. There are no flyers about that yet. We're in the process of producing them, which will be focused on the Congo Wars and the social consequences of the Congo Wars. And so this is a conference organized with AADS by Professor John Clark from the Department of Politics and International Relations. So now at this point, to go back to the event of this afternoon, I must indicate that the idea to organize first we decided to have the very first AADS Humanities Afternoon on Haiti following the disastrous earthquake of last January. And but we decided to organize this first Humanities Afternoon by proposing a pause in the usual representation of Haiti in terms of miserabilism or victimism, and Haiti as the perpetual land of all calamities, either natural, political, and others. And so and I'm sure you all were able to see these representations here and there in the media. And so we decided, on the contrary, to try to, although we don't want to obviously, take anything away from the necessity to continue the effort of helping Haiti, to, on the contrary, advertise the greatness of perhaps of Haitian history, and of the greatness of its literature. It's quite amazing that a country that has gone through so many challenges and continues to do so has produced a formidable literature. And so this afternoon we will have, we will be able to witness that and enjoy this aspect of Haitian realities. And so the afternoon is called the Haiti and her diaspora, the politics of aesthetics and the aesthetics of politics. And so I must, before I invite the people from the first session, I must reveal to you that unfortunately, because of the tropical storm Thomas, the writer Lionel Trouillot, who was supposed to leave Haiti yesterday with the flight of 4:20 p.m., was unable to do so. He sent me an email this morning, very early this morning, to explain and apologize. He was fearing that they were going to close the airport, and so he spent the day yesterday at the airport hoping to be able to take an earlier flight. And of course, he was not the only one who was fearing the closure of the airport, and so there was no empty seats available for him. So he sent us his presentation, and so the chair of the second session, where Lionel Trouillot was supposed to present, will be reading his paper, and then we'll be discussing his intervention as if he were here. So I will then invite the people from the first session, and particularly our first writer, who is based in the diaspora. She lives in Canada, and so this is you can find information about her in the program, and I don't know if so I will invite you and the chair, so Pascal Bessel, who is the chair of the modern languages, to come here. We could sit here. We could begin the session. Marie-Célie Agnan and Professor Cartridge from Barry University. And the Professor Jean Jonassin, I'm sorry, from Syracuse University. I hope you'll apologize.
Well, good afternoon and welcome for joining Humanities event and AADS for organizing this afternoon. So first I will briefly introduce our panelists here. First, Marie-Célie Agnan. As Jean mentioned, she's based in Canada, based there since 1970. She's a novelist, a short story writer, a poet, an activist also in her community. Her publications include novels such as La Dot de Sarah, with which she was a finalist for the Prix Littéraire des Jardins in 1995. Other novels include Le Livre d'Emma, Un alligator nommé Rosa. Marie-Célie Agnan was also finalist for the Prix du Gouverneur Général with Le Silence comme le sang, a collection of short stories. She has published 2 collections of poems also, the latest one, Et puis parfois, quelquefois, in 2009. She has also published children's literature and received le prix Gros Sel, Grands Enfants pour la légende du poisson amoureux in 2003. Marie-Célie Agnan's work is anchored in contemporary social realities, addressing themes such as exclusion, loneliness, racism, exile. It also explores the status of women in respect to the past and memory. Her books have appeared in Spanish, English, Italian, German, Korean, and Danish. So welcome, Marie-Célie Agnan. And I will also introduce our 2 discussants. First, Dr. Jean Jonassin, who is Associate Professor at Syracuse University, where he teaches Francophone and Caribbean literature and cinema. He also taught at Duke University and the Université du Québec in Montreal. He has given lectures at universities across Europe and the United States. His many publications include 5 books, I should say, of which the well-known Le pouvoir des mots, Les mots du pouvoir, des romanciers haïtiens de l'exil in 1986, and des romans de tradition haïtienne sur un récit tragique in 2002. Most recent publication is Tipo, Topo, Poétique sur Franc-Étienne, published in 2009. He has also edited and or co-edited several publications on Francophone and American literature, including a special issue on Franc-Étienne in the Journal of Asian Studies in 2008. His articles have appeared in journals such as Kalalou, Research in African Literature, and Yale French Studies, and is currently working on a critical edition of La Tragédie du Roi Christophe by Aimé Césaire. And our next discussant is Dr. Evelyn Cartwright. Dr. Cartwright is Assistant Professor of English and Director of Africana Studies at Barry University. He teaches English literature, Caribbean and African-American literature. Her articles have appeared in the Journal of Haitian Studies. She's also a poet and has published in the anthology entitled Brassage. Other research interest includes ethics and the difficulties women encounter in leadership positions. She's an active member of her community also, has initiated several cultural and literary events. She has served on the board of the Broward Multi-Ethnic Advisory Board to the Broward County Commissioners as vice chairs for 3 years, and was recently appointed to serve on the board of directors of the Fund for Minority Teachers of South Florida. Please welcome our 3 panelists. Now let's turn to Marie-Célie Agnan.
Merci beaucoup pour la présentation. Bonjour, bonsoir, good evening, everybody. I accepted with a lot of pleasure this invitation, even though I would have preferred to speak in French, which is my first tool as a writer, but also the language that I speak every day. I live in Quebec since 1970. This is a place where you can, live without the necessity of speaking English if you want. But in the circumstances, I realized that Dr. Jean Royer was a little bit stressed, when he told me, are you going to speak in French or English? I said, I could speak in both languages, travel from one to another. But finally, I decided to write the text in English. and you would have to excuse the, how do you say, les accros, how would you say that à la langue?
Glitches. Glitches.
Yeah, exactement, and also the accent that would sometimes would be very strange. So I would ask for your patience and your, comment on dit, un autre mot, your, enfin bon, ça m'échappe. It doesn't matter. As you could see, I'm a little shy person. I don't really like to be in front of people talking, you know, but, and I used to think a long time ago that I could simply hide behind my books, write and rest. But I realized very quickly that it wasn't enough, you know, that as a writer you have to be here and there, traveling all the time and talking with people, and I even think that very often what you have to say has more importance than what you write in your books, and people took the habit of talking and talking and talking, and in order to survive as a writer, I have to do the same. But I would prefer to be, not because I don't like to meet people, but, you know, it is very difficult. I don't like to make speeches, but I'm obliged to. And very often when they invite you and you say that you can't, people don't understand. They think that you're just, you know, pretending to be very busy. Or, I don't know, they don't take it when you don't go to the invitation. But no matter, I'm happy to be here. Well. The other thing is that you have to give a title to your conference. And when you say that you don't make a conference, people, they don't take you seriously. They said, well, how come she doesn't have a title? So I titled this presentation Traversée, which could mean in English passage or not voyage, but passage. Because my journey as a writer is deeply linked to the choices that I made in my life, deeply linked to my choices, ideological choices, and this explains the title of this talk. First of all, I have to say that I had to train myself to the art of speech, because as a woman born in Haiti, I wasn't raised to be able to speak or write. When I think about Haiti for myself, you know, it's for me the country of silence. People don't speak. In my childhood, they don't speak. You don't ask questions. And women don't speak. I remember a very hard experience. They invited me in Haiti to present a book, the book of Emma. There was a book fair, and they also invited us to a school, boys' school, which is called Collège Saint-Martial. And I was the only woman writer, and there were about 3 or 4 men writers. And the person making the chair, you know, presenting the people, he presented all the writers. There was one of them who were absent. They all had the chance to talk. And when it was my turn to talk, suddenly arrived another writer who were not there. And he decided just to ignore me and greet this other person who just arrived. I had to stand up and ask him if he thought that I was, comment on dit, muet. Exactly. And he said, well, because I don't know your work and this and that. So I said, well, I'm going to talk myself and explain to the students, you know, what I do as a writer. So I had to train myself in order to learn how to speak. And I feel that writing is for me a way of assuming this necessity of speaking. It is a challenge, and well, here I am to try to explain to you why do I write and who I am. I came to Canada, I was 16 years old, and since then I've been living in Montreal. I grew up in Haiti, where we speak Creole, and French also for the people who goes to school. That explained the accent. I left Haiti in 70 during the years where exile was the only way to escape political oppression. I had a discussion with Mr. Jonassin today in the car, and it seems that we have to review that discourse. And this is very, very challenging and interesting to see that we have to keep on writing history, because he has another way of seeing things today. So maybe I'm going to have to write other books in order to explain why we left the country, because he doesn't agree totally with this aspect. I settled down in Quebec at the end of what they call the Quiet Revolution, because before that, Quebec was a place ruled for a very long period by an archaic and repressive political system with strong ties to the Catholic Church. So in the 60s, people in Quebec decided to make a complete shift, and Quebec started to breed and became a society full of hope, economically, but also a place with a desire of working for human rights and specifically for women's rights. There were a lot in the 70s, people coming from Chile, from Argentina, from all those countries with political problems. I like to speak about my first years in Quebec as the years of awakening. I was discovering, when you're 16 years old, that's the time that you discover the world, and I discovered also that we need to travel to understand the world, because it is when I got into this place that I started to understand through the TV, through media, through newspapers, and mostly books, what the world was really. I consider the first 20 years of my life in Montreal as one of the richest part of my life. And it was a period of adaptation and personal growth in which I discovered how important it was to have the ability to be reborn. It was for me like be born again at this time. And I think that during those first years in Quebec, I developed to the maximum this capacity until I was born through language in order to kill the void of silence. As I become increasingly aware of Quebec's struggles and successes in achieving greater and more autonomous expression, I also discover the voices of feminists, the voices of anti-racist militants and other liberation movements in the struggle, and writings of Black and third world activists such as Che Guevara, Martin Luther King, Frantz Fanon, Angela Davis, and many more. It was in those years that I read all these thinkers. And while furthering my academic training, I gained a broad variety of experiences in the real world, the working world of Montreal, while a student and after a mother. Some of these experiences, I think, provided context for my creative voice. Even though I consider that far away in my early childhood, I already had this passion for writing and for books, I consider that it was in the context of organizing work in the refugee community. I co-founded, for example, a group for people who disappeared in the third world. I consider that it is in this period that my vocation as a writer was born at this time. My speeches and poems at that time penned for community solidarity activities, they were literary acts of passionate political commitment, condemning dictators, their allies, and their methods. It is at that time that I discovered the power of words and the need for people to exert their right to speak. In those years, I gained a deepening knowledge of the world, and I learned, for example, that Canada is an immense country. They say that it is a rich country, but that it is not necessarily transparent, just like the foreign policy of Canada, which is kept hidden, like its arms sales and the involvement of Canada in companies in third world poverty. And that is also another face and consequence of silence. I must say that I am a writer who are not afraid to say the things, clearly the way I see it in my books and whenever I have the possibility of standing and talking. I feel that those windows I'm talking about are very important to understand my work as a writer. It is through those newly opened windows that I discover, for example, the life of Black people in South Africa. I remember the first years I came to Canada to see my first, comment on dit reportage, documentary, thank you, about Nelson Mandela. And for me, it was a real shock to see also the way Afro-American people used to live in the States. It was another shock because growing up in Haiti, we have a lot of social problems, we have a lot of poverty, but I could never imagine racism the way it was depicted in those documentaries. And I think that all these things that I was discovering trace my way as a writer today. I could not imagine, for example, the existence of Ku Klux Klan. You know, you leave Haiti, you are 16 years old, you are in a place where there is poor people, rich people, but you don't feel racism the way that people were still experiencing it at the end of the 60s in United States. I could not imagine that there were special buses for white people and special space in the buses for white people and Black people. And I feel that I was learning the world, you know. I was learning my space in the world, the space that was reserved for me. And to be so close to the people from Chile, for example, from Argentina, I started to understand Haiti, to understand the why Haiti was the way it was. I also understood why the Haitian nation was silenced, darkened, despised, repressed, exploited, destroyed as a nation, simply because we were a very, very bad example for the system, that they had to punish us forever. I understood also that it is not by mistake that even though we were one of the richest colony France ever possessed, that even though France had been built out of our blood, of our sweat, even though they exploited for 300 years this colony, we do not exist in the memory of the French nation. And I understand why when you open a book, a French history book, Haiti is never mentioned. So I said that I was discovering the world, but also the absence of my own history through the new windows. I was at the same time learning that the strong people, the strongest ones, the conquerors, they write history the way they want it. I also learned that the lion, the hunter, always, that this is an African, comment on dit? Proverb, yeah, thank you. The hunter always writes to tell his side of the story because the lion does not have a voice. And I feel that this is one of the reasons I decided to write. It is also through those windows that I learn about the Holocaust, for example. Because in Haiti, well, at this time, you know, when I was a little girl, we had no TV, and even if we had a TV, we had no access to this kind of information. I remember seeing this program about Holocaust, and I remember being so frightened when I realized that it was a tragedy that had happened only a decade before I was born. And I told myself, but this thing could happen again. And indeed, Rwanda was to come, Bosnia, Palestine, Iraq, and today, Afghanistan. For me, all this is other type of genocides. And through those same windows, I discovered the atrocities surrounding Vietnam War, Latin America, Africa. To make it short, I could say that through the new windows, I was discovering that the past was not the past, that it was still present, painfully haunting, viciously present in various aspects in our lives. And I was also getting the keys to understand the issues related to power, to race and class, and also gender question. I must say that at this time I read a lot Angela Davis, which is still an author that I keep on reading, you know, all the time. And I feel that these are all subjects which I try to touch in the novel, The Book of Emma, which I'm going to read a short excerpt, passage. Thank you. I hope my accent is not too hard on your ears. It's always good because very often the authors themselves, they don't know how to talk about their book. That's what happened. Because this book, I consider it is like a poupée russe. You know those dolls that when you take one, there is another one, there is another one, there is a lot of layers. So it is not an easy thing. But I just wanted to read a little bit one passage where Emma, the person who is supposed to be ill, is talking with the interpreter. There is also a history of transmission. I believe a lot in transmission of our history. And this is a book where Emma is transmitting her past to Flore, who doesn't know about her own history. And at the end, there is also a renaissance, because if they transmit something to you, you have to know how to use it. It's in a way she decided to use the what she just received from Emma to be reborn in a way. So this is Flore talking to Emma talking to Flore. You are here repeating all my words for these whites without missing a single one. Is it perhaps because you believe that they will see you for something other than what you are? That they will appreciate you a little more? Come on, you fool, she says to me, pinching up her lips with scorn. You know nothing of the real story. From the way you look at this little doctor, the way your shoulders slump when you are around him, one can see. You must have learned everything from those books that they themselves have written to tell you your own history. She laughs with a guttural sound that makes me shudder. I have also read some of those books where the history is truncated, lobotomized, excised, chewed on, ground up, then spat out in a formless spray, she goes on. That's it, my poor Dolly. That's why they trampled on my thesis, so that they alone will continue to write for us. So that people will not know that already on the slave ships, they stole both our bodies and our souls. You didn't read that in your big books, did you, Dolly? Pleased with her phrase, she repeats, poor Dolly. That's what I will call you from now on, she declares emphatically. One could easily confuse you with a porcelain doll. You too must have played with those blonde dolls whose eyes open and close. All the little girls from home had them. We call them friends' dolls. Besides, it shouldn't bother you that I call you Dolly. I don't even have a name. In the old days, they gave us our masters' names. But nowadays, what's the use of that? I hear the nurses speaking at the nursing station. Do you know what they call me? The Negro lady in 122. There is also the one in 124, the one in 145, the one in 136. She goes again toward the window to contemplate the river while she continues. You probably believe that your straw-colored hair and your eyes made to fool the night. Because of that, you believe they'll spare you? Alas, many think like you. And that's why the curse of our blood continues to hound us. She closes her eyes and starts to howl. The curse of our blood, I tell you. It isn't the first time she has screamed like that. I already know that no one will come. No one ever comes when she makes a racket. At night, they have to fill her with sleeping pills. It's because of these substances that she sometimes has a lost look. The corridors vibrate continuously from the screams of these women. Their howling reminds me of coyotes. But sometimes they let out cat cries that make your hair stand on end. Here one can swim without being bothered, she says, once she has calmed down. Don't you want to scream with me, Dolly? You probably believe that you don't need to scream. You must think that to be a crazy black woman is the worst possible fate, right? Just like them. I know you think like them. Poor you. The operation was a complete success on you, Dolly. When one comes in the world like that, with those eyes of yours and that inside-out skin and all those mixed-up features, one foolishly assumes that one will be spared the effects of their hate. One thinks that the mauling is for the others. And then one day, bam, one discovers that there are no two ways of being a black woman. Fifi, my mother, was one of your kind, a black woman with that inside-out skin and all those mixed-up features. You'll see? When you learn my mother's story, Fifi's story, you'll see. It's useless to fight against one's black skin. It's like attempting to change the color of the ocean. Okay, this book was published in 2001. And I think that in this book, I question black women alienation, and I try to dig history to explore my ancestors' journey from Africa to the so-called New World. I try to describe the atmosphere and the pain of slavery in order to understand the root of our alienation, to understand the way in which society modeled me and my black sister. But most important, I tried to understand how do we consider ourselves as black women, our relationship with men. What do we see in front of our eyes when we look at us in a mirror or when we look at our children? The book of Emma for me is also a book about unconditional maternal love in a context of deep alienation and self-rejection. There is a part of the book where this woman talks about her childhood and the way she was rejected by her mother because she was too black. That self-rejection inherited from the colonialist system, but it is also a book which ambition is to use the past to shed light on today. People, journalists, when very often they read the book and they keep on thinking that it is a book about slavery, and I keep on telling them that what I wanted to do was mostly to use the past for people to understand the present, but not to write about slavery. In my writing, what I try to do also is to anonymous heroines, to women on the margins of society, women who have been mocked in masculine chronicles, or whose presence has only been associated with their sexual roles. And this is what I tried to portray in my first novel, which is called La Dot de Sarah, Sarah's Story. Fiction is part of life, but I feel that women writers do not approach fiction the same way men do. And sometimes I feel that it is because when we were children, we had no opportunity to play, no place for leisure, no place for pleasure, that we do not turn to fiction just for pleasure or try to prove something to people or to make a name for ourselves. I feel that women writers use fiction because they have something to claim, something to affirm, that we go to fiction to give voices to many voices that we have inside of us, to many silent voices from whom we have to speak. I used to say that whenever I'm writing, while I'm sitting and trying to write, I feel that I have to write for that black woman, which ancestors came from Africa. They were, for the which ancestors were slave, for that women born in Haiti, a very impoverished country, a country that was torn apart by the colonialist system, and for with all what came after. I am also this black woman born in a place, Haiti, where a very machist system is still in place. When you open a book, for example, who speak about Haitian authors, there is a very little space for the women writers. And this picture hasn't changed a lot, along the years. Ghislaine Ray-Charlier, which is a woman who lives in Canada, wrote a book where she wrote about the writers since 1804, when after the revolution, when they started to write, until 1970. If she spoke about, let's say, 50 writers or 30, there was maybe about 3 or 4 women. And along the years, women have to keep on fighting in order to find their space into this literary world. And when you are a woman, very often they will try all kind of maneuver to silence you as a writer. One of the most famous Haitian writers, Marie Vieux Chauvet, who wrote a very, very important book, Amour, Colère et Folie, was silenced for so many years, starting from inside the own family. They try to silence her. And I feel that now in Haiti there is a lot of women, a few women who tried, to take a stand, to take their space, but it is not an easy task for the Haitian writers, the women. I then write to create a space of reflection so that the book may open a door for discussion about the world in which we live and the social phenomena that surround us. I will never conceive of the reading of literary texts as exclusively literary. However, as a creator, I can only explore, grope along, and I don't write perched on certitudes. I feel that writing is something that you never know where the text will drive you. We never know where you go when you start a text, so I have no certitude. The only certitude I have is that I want my voice to be heard. Indeed, it is after I went to a conference in Beijing that I decided that I wanted to spend my time writing. I was involved for many years in all kind of women activism, and in 1995 I went to that conference and I came back very disappointed about a lot of things, about racism, about in the organization itself, about the way that women who were conscious of the way they were used as organization in order for the states, to welcome China in the world of the commerce. So they decided to make that conference in Beijing, but it was nothing about women's rights. So after I went to Beijing, I decided, well, instead of taking my time, to be a very active militant going here and there, I was going to write. That was a best way to make my voice heard. They are telling me that there is only 5 minutes left, so I will end by reading a poem. For me, poetry is the filter that I use in order for those texts, very difficult sometimes, that I deal with, that I can continue dealing with them, and also to help the reader to go through those texts that without that poetry that would be very difficult. My writing is even in the fiction. There is I feel that still there is a lot of poetry, which is not translated yet into English, but I would read in French. Poetry is before all music, so I will read a text for you in French, and I hope that the music of the text, even if you don't understand the French text, the music will talk to your soul. The poem is called Poème sans âge. It's a poem with no age, if we had to make a literary translation. Je suis de celles qui voyagent comme on roule un grain de sable sous les doigts. Je suis de celles à qui l'on tend pour la soif une goutte de pluie acide. J'ai vu le jour dans la casaque du chaos, le silence était mon berceau. Suaire impitoyable, silence tel la pierre. Tous les sentiers du marronnage reconnaissent mes empreintes, les halliers de la vie gardent des lambeaux de ma chair. Bien avant mon premier sanglot, j'ai cavalé tous les chemins, escaladé les murailles, basculé les gouffres. Et à l'âge où l'enfant est encore la nourrice, le feu au ventre sur les volcans, moi je dansais. Pourtant, il m'arrive de me prendre pour un oiseau. Tel un oiseau, dans une joie sauvage, je bats des ailes à la rencontre d'un abreuvoir. Les ailes gorgées de soif, ivre, je plane et fends le vent, tandis qu'au loin, l'oasis grince des dents, éclate de son rire jaune tel un malentendu. Grains de sable ou de poussière au bout des doigts, les tempêtes m'ont ballotté, malmené, déboussolé. J'ai survécu aux tourmentes, allez savoir comment. J'ai parcouru tant de contrées, appris tant de langages et tenté l'aventure du monde. Tel un oiseau, les plumes ivres de vent, les ailes gorgées de soif, je me suis élancé, mais je me suis heurté au dais. Sous le dais, je les ai vus, poing levé à crever le ciel. Sous le dais, ils clament, nous sommes et serons toujours les premiers. Sous le dais, ils se tiennent, convaincus de tout, d'hier et de demain surtout. Ils sont là, visage fermé, sous le dais, torse bombé, caparaçonné, déchaîné. Et moi, oiseau rêveur, obstinément, je rêve du ciel. Mais le ciel leur appartient, et la mer et la terre, et tout ce qu'ils contiennent, dessus, dessous, partout. Oiseaux têtus, j'aspire à l'horizon, mais dans leurs poches se trouvent toutes les clés. Car ils savent aussi, ils savent frapper du poing, taper du pied, marteler, exiger, écraser, déposséder, démanteler, dépouiller, déclencher les ouragans, vider les océans, faire jaillir les éclairs, forcer le tonnerre à gronder, les volcans à ravaler leur colère. Ils savent aussi, ils savent forcer les hommes à s'agenouiller, planter des monstres dans le sein des femmes, changer le lait, l'eau des rivières en sang. Ils savent surtout et partout imposer le silence, tandis que, sous leurs langues agiles, le pain se fait boniment. Oiseau atteint de folie douce, irrésistiblement je guette le ciel, tandis que là-haut ils crachent le feu, car ils savent aussi réinventer la vie. Et surtout, ils sont les premiers et ouvrent la marche. Oiseau têtu, les plumes gorgées de vent, le regard plein d'étonnement, j'ai découvert aussi sous le dais, ceux qui portent le dais, sous lequel sont assis les premiers qui ne portent rien. Le regard laiteux, ils portent aussi l'encensoir. Le pas lourd dans la fumée béatifique, le pas lourd, ils vont de biais, tétanisés, sans regret ni état d'âme, sans nostalgie ni questionnement. Ils portent le dais, sous lequel se trouvent les premiers qui, eux, ne portent rien. J'ai découvert aussi qu'il y a les autres, les collatéraux comme moi, qui ne portent que l'espoir et la casaque du mépris et les tenailles de la faim. Collatéraux comme toi, ma fille, mon enfant, fruit du hasard. Collatéral comme toi, mon fils, mon enfant collatéral, mon enfant du hasard, toi que j'aime tant. Le hasard, c'est naturel, l'amour aussi. À quoi rêvons-nous, cohorte d'oiseaux collatéraux, de paix tiède sans doute, comme d'un fauteuil accueillant? Mais à quoi rêvent les oiseaux sans cervelle? À une tranche de bon pain frais pour calmer la faim, là dans le ventre, omniprésente faim, sans cesse ravalée, faim sans cesse tue, à coups de promesses, à coups de triques, faim reportée, dénoncée, fin de tout, fin de vie, rêve pour les oiseaux sourds-muets, espoir pour les affamés, collatéraux comme moi qui cherchent où se caler, où poser le regard et qui découvrent que comme moi, même les poètes savent mentir et peuvent muer pour trouver leur place sous le dais aussi et cheminer en silence avec le silence dans le silence qui ferme la marche, silence imposant qui bouche tout, ineffable silence à double tour, toutes les avenues, à double tour, toutes les issues, même les égouts, silence, lèvres crispées, silence, lèvres scellées. Oiseaux muets, dans un monde sans voix, autant des chairs sans mémoire, des âmes hors d'atteinte, tant sans énigme, sans une once de mystère, autant. Les cicatrices même ont perdu tout souvenir. Temps sans Dieu, sans lumière ni résonance, inexorable temps. Recueille mon soliloque, dis-moi par quoi j'existe. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Marie-Célie, Agnan. Thank you very much. And now we'll turn to last discussant, Dr. Cartwright. Sorry.
My presentation is a bit different. All my comments are based on the copy that I received in French, and I assumed
Which is not the same.
this is not the same. But since these are the author's thoughts, like she wrote this, and so I'm going to present to you what I had prepared based on this,
That's very
and which
fine.
really raised some very interesting questions. So, okay. As expected, Marie-Célie Ayan's presentation is a remarkable source of focus and inspiration into the reality of the social, cultural life of Black Caribbean women and her vision as a writer. Her paper presents an extremely interesting insight into the author's creative processes. She provides a most comprehensive look into her motivation for being a writer. Her candor is appreciated when she frankly confesses that unlike most authors who end up believing that they are owners and carriers of originality, she simply prefers to be here for a presentation followed by a discussion. The author, while affirming how writing has transformed her into one who manipulates language and memory, also acknowledges that she writes with her eyes wide open, being all the time conscious how spirituality, culture, and politics are intertwined. This meshing sounds quite interesting and intriguing to me, and I hope to you too. So I hope that it would be possible for the author to elaborate on the spirituality and politics connection. To explain racism and colonialism, two important elements of her writing, the author gives us brief background information on Haiti's struggles, past and present. Her African roots and slavery are powerful catalysts that propel what goes on inside to come out. This dynamic of the past being ever present is a recurring theme in contemporary Black women novelists, and is a quite interesting device of delving into past events in order to not only learn about the struggle of the African ancestors, but also as a way of dealing with the past in a constructive and cathartic way. For those in the audience who are not familiar with Haiti and its ills, can you explain what you mean exactly when you say that you are now able to not only understand, but also name the hurt that your country has suffered?
You want me to do that now?
Well,
No, I used to say that by my proximity with the people coming from Chile, for example, when I
Right.
was 16 years old, 17 years old, and I started to be with them and work with them, because they came to Canada with a tradition of the lutte, of struggle,
okay.
which I wasn't familiar in Haiti because I was a little girl an adolescent when I left Haiti, and I wasn't involved in student struggles and things like that. So by reading and being close to them, I understood that Haiti was part of the third world.
Okay.
And what that meant was that through Chile, through Argentina, through Guatemala and El Salvador, to all those people, I could make a link with Haiti's situation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm. So I used to say that I went to the school of the Chilean.
Okay. Do you want me to continue and save the questions for after?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so, fine. It is evident that she's successful in connecting the past and the present. In the romance novel, Le Livre d'Emma, the author uses memory to illuminate her readers on what is going on in the present, and to reveal what really is going on inside, and illustrate at the same time the fact that slavery had been a cultural element in Caribbean societies, an element that has indelibly marked Caribbean people, created certain reflexes in them, and developed ways of thinking, which also influenced some of their actions. This mythical work, Le Livre d'Emma, uses the past as a mirror to reflect the present. These are the author's words. The presentation brings to surface a link between the colonial periods, most specifically slavery and the fate of today's Caribbean women. In spite of time, in spite of how long it has been, slavery still determines very often how most people of African descent deal with the world and personal relationships. I would like to ask the author to make a parallel between the lives of Black women in the United States versus those of Haitian women. If we note that after slavery, Blacks in the US continued to suffer through a long period of segregation, which we can see in Morrison's novel, Alice Walker's, a lot of Black women novelists illustrate this. While in Haiti, after the independence, blacks experienced their freedom in their land. Why, after 200 years of independence, colonialism and slavery still weigh so heavily on our inner struggles, mainly women? We're going to serve that for later. Writing, though quite liberating, becomes a way of questioning herself, the world around her, the social structures, past and present, as well as relationships between men and women. Writing, the author describes as a reflection artistic over human beings and their capacities of using the legacy of past history to navigate and shed light on the present, especially where women are concerned. Writing for Marie-Célie Ayan becomes a way of keeping silence at bay, a way for her voice to be heard and to affirm her own existence, those of her children and people like her, a way to deal with her inner demons. Writing offers the possibility for the author to find herself, to understand her own history while paying attention to those multiple inner voices. Writing has allowed her to find her voice and to stay connected as a woman to what is important to all women and to confirm the belief that women can and will make a difference. And women have made a difference by not remaining silent. And I couldn't help but thinking of Sojourner Truth. We go all the way back to 1797 when Sojourner Truth, a slave woman, stood up in a white Universalist church to give a speech that was later given the title, Ain't I a Woman? Truth, courage, and frankness for a black woman born a slave in the 1850s was to be admired. Publicly rebukes a man who argues that if God wanted women to have equal rights, then he would have made Christ a woman. Here, Truth makes her point, bluntly. She says, if the first woman God ever made was strong enough to turn the world upside down all alone, these women together are to be able to turn it back and get it right side up again. Women always have had to overcome what some may consider quite daunting challenges and sometimes oppressive conditions to be able to express themselves as artists. The author questions how she can write and ignore that for the majority of people on this planet, the change is caused by globalization and the large possibility of exchange that goes with it brings nothing beneficial. And I'd like her to elaborate on that too. Okay. The author also questions how being a woman cannot all be separated from being an author. How being an author can be separated from the everyday realities of the world. And she also questions how she can write and forget that in our world today, some women are still being denied basic rights. Thousands of women die every day giving birth to their children, and others bury their children who die from malnutrition. Can't help but ask a simple question. What does writing mean in Haiti? She questioned the status quo of men who for decades have managed to exclude women on what is considered traditionally a male occupation. What does writing mean in Haiti today? Are women less excluded? I think you've answered that for us. Has there been progress? Paul-André Pouls, a retired professor of literature Québécoise, wrote, in the past 3 decades, members of the Asian community in Quebec have produced a wide variety of literary texts, and writers such as Daniel Laferrière, Émile Olivier, Stanley Payan, Anthony Phelps, and Joël Desrosiers have received a considerable amount of critical attention. It is worth noting that Ayan, one of only a few Asian women writers in Quebec, has yet to receive the same level of media recognition as her male counterparts. Now, I have to ask, do you agree with his assessment?
Well, I think this article has been written a few years ago, even though I have to say that I am a writer who is most of the time outside of Quebec and Canada, in Europe mostly, in Latin America, than in Quebec itself. For the last 3-4 years, I've been receiving more invitations to be present in some things that some activities in Quebec, but this is true that, but sometimes it depends also of who you are as a writer. Some people are very noisy, okay. they go
yes,
and they are,
personality.
Personality, yes. I don't know, but,
yeah.
But there is also the fact that the space has always been occupied by those men who doesn't want to see you in their exactly. So they will try by all their means, to. And when they ask them, what about the women? Do they write? They would say, no, there is no Haitian woman who writes in Quebec. Those same writers,
right.
Those guys. That's the attitude.
Yeah.
So, well.
Okay. I'm on time? I have just a few more words to add,
Okay,
and I'm done.
you have a few minutes.
Thank you. As most Black women writers of the 20th century, Mary Célie Aryan uses fiction as a weapon for social change. Through a thorny landscape, slavery, the author's work adds to the literature of Black women writers and adds one more voice of women from the African diaspora, which offers an unparalleled view of Black women's struggles through time.
Well, Cartwright, she read carefully the first text that I sent, because it's for me easier to write in French, of course. So I wrote that first text, but I see that Mr. Raye was so much nervous about the English part that I started to write, and of course I wrote something else in English. And it happened when I'm writing, the editor would tell me, well, maybe you should correct this, and I write another book instead of something completely different. So this is the same person, the same text. Some of the ideas, you can find them in what I wrote, but it's a little different.
And I felt this was written from the heart.
Yes. But the same, well, instead of translating this one, I just started to write something else, and that's what I try to read to you, but escaping some part of it.
Right. Well, thank you. So. So now we'll give a chance to maybe Dr. Jonassin or Marie-Célie Agnan maybe can answer some of the other questions, and the audience, of course, we're opening.
Because it's not always easy, to explain everything. But what is it
we
that
talked
you
about
want me
you talked about a connection between spirituality, politics, and culture, like they are intertwined.
Je peux parler en français? Parce que je suis fatiguée. It's really tiring, to speak another language. I don't know if you... Je vais essayer de... Maybe somebody can make a translation if possible?
We can join forces and try.
Ouais. Madame Cartridge, she's asking me how does spirituality and politics and culture, how do I connect them in? Well, in my personal, I am a writer, but I'm a woman. There is not the writer on the side and the person on another side. What I try to do in my own life is. Ce que j'essaie de professer dans ma vie personnelle, je pense que je le fais aussi dans mon travail d'écrivain. C'est-à-dire la spiritualité, c'est quelque chose de très important pour moi, dans le sens où, pas dans le sens, religieux ou quoi que ce soit, mais je pense que nous sommes des êtres humains, nous ne sommes pas une âme séparée du corps ou de l'esprit ou de la nature. J'ai une vie spirituelle très très intense dans le sens où j'essaie d'être très connectée avec la nature, dans mon environnement c'est difficile d'expliquer la spiritualité. Enfin, je sais pas comment, mais je ne veux pas être uniquement un être humain, un corps. Sans une vie spirituelle, sans penser à l'âme. Et dans le livre d'Emma, je pense que c'est très évident qu'il y a un apport du spirituel, mais aussi du culturel et de la politique. Au fait, tout est lié. À mon avis, tout est lié et c'est une erreur que l'on fait en tant que société. Je pense que beaucoup de sociétés aujourd'hui, les gens fonctionnent comme ça. On est séparés. Le spirituel n'a aucune influence sur la vie, mais moi, je pense que c'est important d'avoir une vie spirituelle et de le professer. Mes enfants, par exemple, comment je leur transmets le spirituel, c'est tout en étant enfant, de leur faire découvrir la nature, de leur faire savoir qu'il y a des gens qui ont des pratiques spirituelles qui peuvent être liées, par exemple, à la religion, mais d'avoir une vie spirituelle, de penser finalement qu'on a une âme également. Et c'est ce que je crois que j'ai essayé de faire dans le livre d'Emma, c'est beaucoup plus évident. Et la politique est très très importante. Lorsqu'on parle par exemple de la transmission de l'histoire, pour moi c'est politique. Au fait, tout dans la vie, je pense, est lié aux politiques. Comme je le dis dans le texte, l'air que nous respirons est politique. La pollution de l'air est quelque chose de politique. Et ce sont des mesures politiques qui peuvent amener, par exemple, à un changement dans la vie dans laquelle nous sommes engagés.
Okay, so do we need to translate? No. Well, anyway, spirituality is very part of life, and there's no disconnection either between your life as a person and as a writer.
As a writer,
and
yes.
Just about everything is also
Politics.
about politics. So now we'll invite questions from the floor. Yes, sure. Yeah.
Fine, thank you.
Coming today, and thank you for sharing your journey.
Could you identify yourself, please?
My name is Jordy.
Bonjour. Hi.
Pleasure. I was taking notes as you were reminding me, actually, when I worked with Celia Cruz, she refused to speak. And it was kind of awesome because it forces us to grow into perhaps learn a new language in a sense.
It's okay.
I have to learn French now. I'm bilingual, but my question really is, you said that in your years of awakening during your time in Quebec, what exactly in Quebec kind of allowed you to go through a process?
What allowed me to do it? First, I have to say that it was the years where I was in what they call cégep. Cégep is a college, pre-university. And it was an ambience where there was a lot of freedom, for example. It was the first time I was experimenting freedom as an adolescent. It was the first time I had access to so many books, to so many information on TV. And I was very hungry, a hunger for knowledge, So I made theater, for example. Et Québec was, in the 70s, c'était des années d'expérimentation. Tout le monde expérimentait par le biais du théâtre, par le biais des films, par exemple. Aller au cinéma, voir des films révolutionnaires en quelque sorte. Pouvoir lire un livre sur le Tché, pouvoir participer à des discussions, c'était des années de réveil. Pouvoir aller à une manifestation où on parle de libération de la femme, c'était les années où on parlait de la pilule anticontraceptive, de la libération de la femme. C'était des années vraiment très très importantes pour moi. Quand vous avez 16-17 ans, c'est formidable.
Much experimentation in all areas.
Films, yes. Theater. Exactly, to all these things, yeah.
And socially.
Of course, of course. Yes, and I started, after that in the 73, the Chileans started to come to Canada. And I always had a passion for Spanish language, which I speak, but I won't today. This is, I started to be involved a lot in this association, and I was part of a member, a co-founder of an organization they call Disparu Tiers-Monde, which was raising fund to help Chilean prisoners, the families of these people. So it was really those fantastic years for me because of all this freedom and the hope also. And after that there was all l'époque de l'Afrique du Sud. C'est à cette époque, dans les années 80, it is in this time that they started, l'époque où Nelson Mandela va sortir de prison. Ensuite, c'était le Nicaragua, le Salvador, le Guatemala. For me, it was very important to be in all these, these things. And I think that my writing, even today, the books for kids, you can find the traces of all these commitment. And I'm still a very committed person, but I think that I put more time on my writing now than in being, you can be everywhere. So that's, you're welcome.
Next question, see?
You.
Fine, thank you.
It's a very eye-opening speech. Sorry, this is lower than I am. It's a very eye-opening speech. The voice of women writers, Haitian women writers, are silenced in my own knowledge as a Haitian man, and you guys have opened my mind. I was wondering, I kind of maybe gleaned a little bit of this, and I was wondering maybe if you can speak more of if you find any parallels between your characters in terms of between the Haitian woman and in your characters and Haiti itself as both silenced individuals, the silenced nation, a silenced identity, and trying to finally, in its rebirth, voice itself as a thoughtful, as a complex person or a complex nation. I don't know, I kind of saw some of those things. I don't know if there is that theme in your works.
I hope I understood your question clearly. I'm not sure. Est-ce qu'il veut savoir s'il y a des personnages qui ressemblent à des personnages qu'on peut haïtiens ou
Oui,
non?
un peu.
Parallèle entre
Un parallèle.
la femme haïtienne et Haïti.
La femme haïtienne et Haïti. I feel that writing is something that comes very, very deeply from your roots. Even though I lived for all these years outside of Haiti, I felt that I stayed very deeply rooted in Haiti. And when I'm writing, I feel that it is a movement that comes, from very, very, c'est très tangible, that comes from inside, from very inside. But at the same time, I feel that it's like I'm trying in my writing to reconstruct something that I had that is broken. And very often when I read somebody like Edwige Danticat, at the beginning I used to feel a little frustrated because I cannot write the same way that she's writing, because she's been living in the States, in a place where she's been bedding in an ambiance très haïtienne. And the fact that she wasn't disconnected from Haiti for many years, with the going back and forth, maybe. I was cut from Haiti for 20 years. I didn't go back to Haiti. It wasn't because I could not. It was by choice. Because personally, I was feeling that this country that I had left because I could not live, I don't want to go back as a tourist. And I always tell myself that I will never go back to Haiti when Duvalier is there. And indeed, I went back only in 91 when I was sure that, well, maybe we were going to see the light of a new time. So I was cut from this country, but I feel that all I'm writing is very little pieces that I'm putting together. And maybe in those little pieces, there is a lot of these women's, their fight and their, it's my heritage. It's still there, it's still there. And I feel that in the characters that I'm depicting, that this exists, like Mariana, and when Mr. Jonathan was talking about this book, I'm talking a lot about the fight that women goes, from day to day in order to live, to raise their kids. So this is still in me, but I feel there is a lot that is missing because there is a big distance between me as a little girl in Haiti and today when I'm writing. Il n'y a pas de quoi.
Thank you. And one last question. We have time for one last question. Okay.
Merci.
There is a poem Sans Âge.
Yes.
Yes, you keep saying, referring to many people. Cette capacité de transformer les rivières en bains de sang.
Oui.
Are these people you're referring to exactly? I have a second question. Talk of that enlightened you in knowing the truth in the world.
Can you repeat that for me? Haiti has?
Haiti has, your personal history in Haiti has helped you be sensitive towards the problems the world is going. You referred to other places, you say these things can happen everywhere else.
Yes.
Rwanda, by the way, I come from Rwanda. But in your writing, it seems like you're really only concentrated on Haiti.
Not really, not really. I feel that when I'm writing, I want what I write to be open to for human experience. In fact, Mr. Jonassin spoke about Le Livre d'Emma, and he said that she was a Haitian woman. People have this kind of reading because they know that I'm a Haitian, but there is not one part in the book that it is said that she is an Haitian, you know, and very often I write without even putting the name Haiti. I always try to invent a name myself because I'm concerned that my writing goes beyond Haiti.
I wanted to know how are your work is getting impact beyond only Haiti, since you're not only.
Well, I guess that the fact that those books have been translated in other languages, there is access to the books, you know, to students and people and scholars who work everywhere in the world. This is a way that the book, you know, has an impact on other people. And in this poem, Sans Âge, you're referring, when I'm talking about those day, I'm talking about, it's a poem that, it's a reading of the world. It's a lecture of the world. And those people, for me, they are the one who, ceux qui dirigent le monde, ceux qui mènent, those who have all the keys. You want to know who they are? I think that you know, I know them, you know them. I'm talking about them.
All right. Well, thank you.
Ce sont les saints visages de son nom.
Yes.
Thank you to all our panelists for an engaging, inspiring
Merci beaucoup.
discussion. All right.
M'a beaucoup touchée.